Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome everybody to the first HR Huddle of 2024. And Samantha and I are excited to be with you today. We thought as we're looking at January, we were looking at our work to do coming back from the holiday break. We closed for two weeks over the holidays, which is luxurious, but takes a lot to prep on the front end, and then coming back to a whirlwind. And then we know, given it's January and busy season is right around the corner, maybe upon us for some of your folks. We know your client accounting folks, this is a busy time of year. So there's just different peaks and valleys. And we just thought we would talk today about preparing people for busy season and talking about some strategies that they could make or take in order to be more successful, less stress, plan better, and make it work better for the team, for the clients, and at home. And so we're teaching a webinar on it this month. And as Samantha and I were talking about that, we thought, gosh, this would be a really good topic for HR Huddle as well. And so we're not sure what you guys do in your firms, but we're going to give you guys some ideas. And some of them you might do, some of them might be new ideas or things that you've stopped doing. If you're listening live and you want to share some of the strategies that you put in place to support your team, we would love for you to chat those, to us, message us. We're out here watching and we can do that. So, and you might be able to take some of these ideas back to your leadership team. There might be some maybe learning opportunities. There might be some team meetings or kickoff meetings you're going to be doing in the coming month. Those are all great places to share some of these ideas we're going to be talking about today. You could also do maybe a weekly email on 2 tips, reminders, or things like that. So we'll kind of think about ways as we're sharing these ideas of how you could impart these to your team as well. Samantha, is there a particular place you want to start?
I guess one thing that struck me listening to you is, coming out of a time where we just had some vacation, right? And maybe people took some extra time off at the end of the year, or even later in the year, you take summer vacation and you come back and now you dive into another busy season. Something that was hitting me is the use of the check-ins. We talk an awful lot about make sure you have a tether for everybody in your firm, and do a check-in before you really get immersed heavy in the busy season. And one of the things that this can help you with is keeping a gauge on your people. Really start to see if how they're answering your check-in questions is changing, if their motivation seems to start waning, or their mood is changing. You can see the stress wearing on them. And so if we start these check-ins early, it's kind of like you got that baseline, where they're feeling a little fresher, maybe a little more hopeful, excited about truly the purpose of what you do and the difference that you make. And then that way, as you start to see maybe that starting to wane, you can start using some of these additional ideas that we'll talk about to really be able to apply that. So start those early, and that's certainly a tip you can give to all your managers or your tethers and shepherds that you have, is get those check-ins in and make sure they prioritize those.
Yeah, love it. And just as a reminder, the 4 questions we like in those check-ins, how are you really? How is it going? Any updates you want to give me, like that kind of a question. What are you working on now that you are enjoying, that you like, or that you're anticipating working on that you like? Anything that you're working on that you don't like? How come? What kind of support do you need, or what kind of resources do you need? And just, check in, like Samantha said, and find out how people are doing. And, listen. You don't have to even solve it all in that meeting. Sometimes we don't want to ask those kinds of questions because we're not sure we can solve it all. We don't have to. We can hear it, and then we can figure out how to follow up and then circle back and, communicate. So that's a great starting place. And I think tied to that, Samantha, one of the things that I've been talking to folks on my coaching calls, and these are even like director, newer partners, sometimes managers, is how do we plan and manage our client schedule better? I
Mhm.
think we might do a pretty good job or a better job with staff, with interns, with, maybe seniors. But as you start to progress to manager, director, partner, it feels like I'm kind of at the mercy of everybody else.
Right.
And so instead, how do we map out those clients and really plan and anticipate what's coming? And we have a history with our clients, so we can start there, even if I don't know for sure. We could also do a better job of managing clients, setting expectations, timelines, putting them in certain places. I think on the audit side, we do a little bit better job of that. We might not do a good job completing things. We should schedule that better. So there's pockets, no matter what area or discipline you're in, there's pockets we could do better. But I think overall, how do we plan clients better and make sure we're not going to set ourselves up? You look at it and go, I now have 2 90-hour weeks. And that's not reasonable for anybody. But we could control that. We could move things. We could look for resources. And it won't be perfect. I think that's one of the reasons people don't do this kind of planning, is because it moves and shifts, and it will. But if I know what it is, then I can reach out and proactively communicate with clients. I can, plug people in. I can figure out resources. I can find out where there's conflicts. I could also look at my personal schedule to see, what kind of impact that's going to have on me and what my commitments are, personally. But for whatever reason, we feel like as managers, directors, partners, I'm such a support role in helping everybody else that my stuff is last, and I'm doing it at night, Saturdays, Sundays, and it doesn't have to completely be like that. We're going to have extra effort. I'm not saying that, but my gosh, we could do a better job to smooth that out than we do.
And I think a couple tips that could be worked on with scheduling is one, when the delegation, especially as it's going down, like you're talking about, Tamara, but when you're doing that delegation, making sure that you're communicating the impact of why the deadline is being set. And that's clear for your clients too.
Right.
So when we're saying to a client, we need all of your information by X date, and let them know what the impact. If we don't have it by X date, then your schedule will likely get put on pause because we're going to be able to pick it back up over on this date. And really let them know, because we're not doing that. And maybe people don't feel empowered that they can say that to a client. But if a client's not working with you, now all of a sudden it created a difficulty with all the other clients. And that's where this stress and that busy season, just you feel buried and overwhelmed and out of control because you don't feel like you can say those things. So
Right.
making sure we're communicating the impact of those dates so that the people who are working with us can communicate earlier if there's a problem. And two, they can do a better job of getting it to the date that we need it. The second, and I recently ran into this, is that are you doing your scheduling based on the most ideal situation? So is it, if all the stars align, this is how the schedule would work? And though that's wonderful and optimistic, and tend to think optimistically, we know all the stars don't align all that often. So give yourself the buffer. Don't try to squeeze too much in, and be really realistic. And again, empower your teams when they're working on scheduling to do that, to not do the schedule based on the most ideal situation. Realize things happen, and we got to be able to accommodate. And we can do that better if we actually build in some buffer in the scheduling.
Yes. Very smart. And I think we do that. And we don't build in redo time. We don't build in delegation time. We don't build in coaching time and feedback time, which is important. And we have to give feedback during busy season. Caroline, I'm thinking of 2 blogs we should share with these folks. One is Stop Walking the Tightrope and Manage Your Clients. And the other is You're Never Too Busy to Give Feedback. But we don't put that time in there, Samantha, to your point about, we're fantasy land, ideal, scenario, and all stars, all clients, all staff align, and my dog doesn't get sick and the traffic works,
there's not a snowstorm and
right, as it's coming both our ways tonight. Yes, exactly. So we want to make sure we, budget those things in and, put that in place. I think that is super important as well. And part of that planning is also mapping your home plan on top of it, for your personal plan. And life doesn't stop during busy season. We might reduce some of the things. And that's one of the things, to talk to your people about and make sure your leaders are talking to your people about, like, what commitments are they continuing? Maybe reduce, but maybe not. That could be part of your check-in, by the way, so that we can plan for it. If, Caroline on our team teaches dance, that's not stopping because we have busy season. We plan around that. We know that. If we're coaching, taekwondo or, timing the swimmer, meet or, whatever it is, holidays come up, birthdays come up. There's Valentine's Day in there. Let's try to have a meal with our family on Valentine's Day. Those kinds of things. Let's make sure they're mapped in there. I know somebody told me that Friday nights, what he does is that's family night. And he ends at 5:00 on Friday night and goes and does family night on Friday night. Now he manages the rest of his week to get the workload done, but his family can count on that. And they do different things, watch movies, go roller skating, go bowling, whatever. But his family knows, for sure Friday nights are theirs, and that's how they end the week. So map that out. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but then I can start to see, some of these things that I'm scheduling, I might get in trouble, move them or communicate in advance about them. Sometimes we just have to be proactive and say, hey, there is going to be this conflict or this expectation during this time period or on this date, and we can get ahead of it. So it's not last minute, or I didn't feel like I was thinking about it, which doesn't make people feel good. And so we can support our, home team doing that as well.
And that might be some feedback that you need to give somebody. I mean, if there's somebody who complains and feels like, man, I never get to have my night off, my Friday night or something like that, ask, are you sharing in advance with your team, right? Because when we do the last minute, that's where people have the least amount of patience.
Right.
And especially as the busy season goes on, everybody's patience gets a little less. So especially for our team members who aren't big planners. And so, Tamera, you're smiling. I know it's not your favoriteest of things, but they're having to do so much of it at work that when it comes to their personal life, they really don't want to have to do the planning. But then they feel disappointed because, maybe too many other people are already off, or they're feeling like they have too many projects and they can't take that 3-day weekend, even though it's busy season, but you know what? There's a family wedding going on. Well, make sure you're talking to people and you're encouraging them. Tell us early. We want to work with you. We want to make that happen. But the last minute changes are the harder ones and make it more stressful on the whole team, including them, the person asking, because they know. Right. So, really encouraging people and giving them that feedback of, work on what are those important dates and doing it early and offer that. Yeah. And feedback in general, like you said, we have to add that into the scheduling. And so I just want to come back to how important that is to offer feedback, because that's another one that as a leader, you may feel sometimes that I don't want to offer somebody feedback because I don't want them to quit. I don't want them to feel overwhelmed by feedback and just go ahead and up and quit. When in actuality, it's probably the opposite, because people will create quite a bit of anxiety and stress when they're wondering how they're doing. And if they're sitting there asking themselves, am I doing this right? Am I doing it well? Does anybody even notice what I'm doing? All of those things really add to our stress. It doesn't give us purpose for what we're doing in the absence of that feedback. It doesn't correct it. So maybe I don't hate that part of my job so much because I'm doing it wrong, or I'm doing it in a way that's much more laborious than it needs to be. So really reinforce with your managers how important and valuable feedback throughout the busy season is.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And on the home front, one of the things you might think about doing is having a manager or director or a couple people share with the team what do they do to support home life. And it
Yeah.
could be a combination of people with kids, people with roommates, people living at home with parents. How do you manage expectations? How do you communicate that? How do you communicate to outside commitments, activities? Maybe they're on the volleyball team and, on the finance team at church, or, like there's different places that they're volunteering, or the Humane Society. I might need to schedule less, although that's really good decompression. That's the kind of stuff. Don't give it up. How do you maintain exercise, meal planning, using some of the different, meal options that are available? There's so many today. How do we facilitate that? And having people share their stories is a great way to be able to do that. So that's just a thought. Yeah, go.
I just say, and that's not selfish. I just had a coachee today basically ask me, is it selfish for me to work in physical exercise and prioritize that? And they felt like that was selfish because the work hours have been first for them on everything. And that's where I had to talk to them about making sure you stay healthy, making sure that that doesn't impact you. That's not selfish. If you have to think about that, what's the benefit to my firm? Well, then you can think about how you have less absences because your immune system's stronger and you can produce more because you feel better. And, if you have to think about it in what it's giving to the firm, then you can. But to prioritize your health and make sure you get a workout in and that you have healthy food and snacks, that's not selfish. And we got to remind our people of that, because I had that very conversation today.
Yes. Well, and since we're speaking about food, we have to be careful. I know we like to reward people with food and make it easy, which encourages them to work more. But we have to be careful that we're not ruining any New Year's resolutions or commitments to eating healthy. Plus, it makes us feel sluggish. If we have pizza every time, that's going to not be the most encouraging food to have us, push through a couple more hours. And so think about nutritious meal options. And people have different dietary restrictions also. And also, I know we've moved away from Saturdays. A big part of firms have moved away from mandatory Saturdays, but still sometimes offer breakfast or lunch, and then it feels obligatory. And I need to just show up and have FaceTime at the meal, but I'm not really producing much. So think about that. We want to, make sure we're not giving mixed messages there. And it is nice to not have to think about it. It is a nice, benefit. Plus, we have remote workers. And so we have to consider that as well. And, the different perks that we're offering. So I know that gets tricky, but, come up with some, different possible scenarios and options to make that really feel good for people. And then other ideas for managing stress. Samantha, I don't know if you were reading Emily's Work to Do, but her fivers, maybe you've heard about it.
I haven't been able to read it yet today.
Yeah. So how do we do fun things, to take a mental break or a physical break and, chair yoga or whatever. But Emily was writing about fivers. I need to go learn more about it, but it's small breaks during the day. Whether you do a dance off or you do, 5 minutes of yoga or you do some kind of other mental break. But, we could just like spot call it. Whoever can participate, or can you pop it on people's calendars, or, you join Zoom and you do it together. We meditated. We've shared that before. We've meditated weekly during the pandemic, and then we moved to about monthly. We still meditate together, and it makes a difference. And it's like, I don't have time to stop and do that for 10 minutes or 12 minutes. But my gosh, the clarity that we have going back into whatever we were doing or the next thing makes a huge difference. So there's some fun things you could do to maybe sponsor that or facilitate that, to help reduce stress, to have that clarity, to have that mental pause that we all need, that a lot of us don't take. Plus the physical, change, sitting at our desk, standing, just moving, all of that can make a difference.
Exactly. Well, one last thing that ties right in with what you said, and is also about feel good, is make sure you celebrate.
Yes.
Make sure we don't forget the celebrations, the milestones. So for all of our cast folks right now that are heads down in year-end closing and 1099 and W-2 and all those fun things, celebrate when this is all done,
Yes.
and that we hit that deadline, and hit those little milestones, because the big dates are there and we know we get to celebrate those, but find those little milestones that show we're making progress. Do we have 50% of the returns completed at this point? Or I don't know, you could have fun with it. But just find those little things that you can celebrate, acknowledge each other, send, message out on Teams, but just the pieces where it takes us out of that mindset of the grind and reminds us of what we're doing. We're a team doing it together, and we have fun and we make a difference with what we do.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Gratitude goes a long way, and it doesn't take that much time, and it doesn't cost any money. So it's a great thing to keep in mind, and maybe a weekly goal of gratitude, to keep it front and center for us. And again, encourage your managers to find both private and public ways to share their gratitude as well. So we hope this helps. We'd love to hear what your strategies are. We write about this. Like I said, we're doing a webinar on it. There's lots of publications in Accounting Today and other places, that Journal of Accountancy, that write on it. So, go search for ideas, share them with your team. And we hope you get set up for a great, great busy season. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good rest of your week. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks.